Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. I'm often asked in gatherings, in webinars, and in messages whether India is losing its clout in the subcontinent. Those people associate with India, and this question is asked not only by Indians but by the people who are not Indians but have an interest in the growing economy and the political structure. And these questions assumed a much more importance when India was elected to the Security Council. One of the questions asked by people who matter is how does India Nepal issue, the close relationship of China and Pakistan against India, the anger in Bangladesh affecting India's clout in South Asia? Is it as powerful and as dominant as it was in the times of Nehru and Indira? Or is it now taken for granted? The anxiety that India is losing its clout in subcontinent is not new. As far as Pakistan is concerned, it has been a perpetual at crossroads with India. I won't call it enmity, but then it's no less than that. China since 1962 has been a thorny issue. India had a plus minus relationship with Sri Lanka, Myanmar. Sometimes we had very good relations and then we cooled off, then again good, again balancing. Nepal had excellent relations when King Dirbhavan Rana was tormented by King Dirbhavan was tormented by the Ranas. He rushed to India to seek asylum, and the pacifist Nehru, who doesn't believe in interfering the internal relations and affairs of other countries, directed Indian army to take up action if desired. Luckily, no military action was required, and Rana surrendered. And then King Dirbhavan went back. Bhutan had always very good relations with India. So it is, the whole thing has been hanging in a balance. But now it has become a special issue among Delhi people and the people around Delhi. Is a concern really new? As a matter of fact, if I took the historical perspective, it has been losing some and gaining some at the same time. At the time of Nehru, he was a leader of the newly independent India, and people looked at him in awe and love and reverence. There's no denying the fact. Despite his some mistakes, he is primarily responsible for not building India as it is. He built the industrial base. He failed on the military front, but industry and self-sufficient and agriculture. Mrs. Gandhi built up, but then she was more astute. She tried to reduce the enmity of Pakistan by dividing India, Pakistan into two countries, with India siding with Bangladesh, and Bangladesh was obliged to India for 3 years. But then Mujib was murdered. General Arshad came into power. He was an Islamist. On the whole, the foreign policy mirrored the fracture which was taking place in the political class. When 1977 general elections took place, the opposition party criticized Indira Gandhi for a costly pursuit of regional hegemony in South Asia, and she was accepted, the Iron Lady. She was as the leader not of India, but of South Asia, whether it was Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka. Bangladesh, of course, was dancing at her finger twiddling. So she was taken as an icon of South Asia. And the opposition parties under Morarji Desai and the Foreign Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, according to them, took some corrective decisions. They shelved some of the programs that had been made. As a matter of fact, the GSN movement was scuttled. But then it did not take them long to face the same criticism as Indira Gandhi faced. And no government since that time has escaped the criticism of mishandling the neighbors. And it is especially so because of the political hacks. They do not understand the subtle nuances of diplomacy, foreign relations, and sitting on their writing desk without any knowledge and experience of handling international relations, they start criticizing or praising as per the political affiliation. And the public thinks, most of that the written word is an oracle, a directive from the God, and believe it, as they believe in what CNN writes or speaks about Trump. Absolutely false. Same is about most of the media, because most of the media is a pro left media, so called liberal and democratic media. Let's not forget that historically that Raj, during the British Raj, I mean, exercised power not only on India but on the neighborhood. And if you would remember, during the 19th and the 20th century, the Indian Ocean was dominated by the Royal Navy and the Indian Army. Indian capital and labor moved across the Indo-Pacific. You could go anywhere in Indo-Pacific and even in Caribbean and even in Africa, Indian labor was found. On the continental side, the British Raj had surrounded itself with buffer states and protectorates and often projected military power beyond them. The Raj contributed to develop port cities from Aden to Hong Kong and constructed trans-regional connectivity. I would not hesitate in calling it the British Belt and Road Initiative. But it was still not India. It was a superpower and it was a British thing. But even for the British Raj, the British Empire, which was one of the largest powers in the history, it was an unceasing struggle. They continued to sustain the primacy. They had to fight the British, the other European rivals from coming. The Great Gate was keeping the Dutch, French, German, Russians, and Japanese away from India because whosoever controlled India controlled Indo-Pacific. And the discipline that was enforced made people feel that they are really powerful. India is really powerful, especially where you go. India was there. And then, when India became independent, it didn't have that sort of imperial majesty or that sort of attitude. As a matter of fact, a longer look at the India's regional diplomacy suggests that this is a seesaw game. At one time you are powerful, then you are not. You have more clout. Sometimes you are a moral leader, and sometimes you are a military leader, and sometimes you are a political leader. The notion of regional primacy persisted in that state. And the security, he signed three security treaties, which nobody talks about, but they were very important. He signed with Bhutan, with Sikkim and Nepal, and it was done even before India became a republic. It was done in 1949 and 50. It was on 26th of January 1950 that India became a republic. But primacy was hard to sustain. Let's not forget it. Everybody wanted to be independent. So these three treaties were very important in establishing the domination of India, and the political agents were replaced by the ambassadors. But then it was a different track. Now, India was not a protector, not a suzerain, but first among equals. It was an elder brother, no longer a father. And the schizophrenia this duality generated among the Indian diplomats was hard to sustain after independence. And there are five reasons for that, which again are forgotten by the people. The first was the partition. The partition took place on religious lines, and that wound still is there. It has not healed. And no amount of virtue calling, we are brothers, we are the same cultural heritage, that all is window dressing. That is no reality. Enmity is always there. And just the poised words do not change the fact that there is inherent enmity in these two newly created nations. And the challenges of settling boundaries, sharing river waters, protecting the rights of the minorities, easy flow of goods and the people is not that easy the way people talk, because of that huge, massive bloodshed that occurred at that time, and then the mutual distrust that happened. Then the arrival of China at the Indo-Tibetan border during 1950-51. Now, here's a curious thing. This was the period when India was divided and China was united. So the unification of China amidst the partition of India transformed the geopolitical situation condition. And now this fact can only be understood by the people who are working in the foreign ministry, because this political upheaval created such situations. So beyond the bilateral territorial dispute in Himalayas, there was emergence of a large and purposeful country that was India. Barring that, India was progressing. It was becoming self-sufficient in industry. It was becoming self-sufficient in food. But then the third reason, independent India's have made a conscious choice of deglobalization. That could have been a mistake. The deglobalization led to a steady depreciation of commercial activity, and the commercial activity, the trade with the neighbors stopped. Delhi's new quest of dominance was not just for global economy but a regional one. And economic orientation this the 1950s was in fact a rediscovery of regionalism, and that was bad. There has been much progress in the recent years. For example, can you believe it? The launch of the ferry service to the Maldives. And again, no political commentator commented on that. No press articles were that, but it was a revolutionary step taken to have a ferry service to Maldives, and inland waterways were reopened with Bangladesh. This infrastructural development is shaping the dominance, the commercial and the trade dominance, and the political clout always follows the commercial dominance. Now consider the recent fiasco of onion exports to Bangladesh. The foreign ministry might see the neighborhood as an integral geopolitical space, but the commerce ministry there is no difference between Bangladesh, Bolivia, and Brunei. Herein lies that India, the ministries, there is no coordination I mean to say, your trade with Bangladesh is much more important than, say, with Brunei or with Bolivia. So, what we need is, and what Modi has still not been achieving, regional economic and foreign policy, their integration. Actually, Prime Minister Modi needs a person who can be instrumental in establishing the connectivity. And that was done in Canada Great. Canada was responsible, though Mr. Trudeau has abolished that, in combining foreign ministry and international trade. There were no separate ministries. International trade was a part of the external affairs ministry, foreign ministry. Now they call it global affairs and whatnot. But that was a mistake which Trudeau committed. Anyway, the fourth cause was the persistent fallacy that the neighborhood is India's to win. They'll always look to India. They'll look to India as a big brother. They'll always follow India. No. Indian politicians ignore the rise of political agencies, the neighboring elites, and mass politics that they need to manage. And the imperatives of these masses, say in Bangladesh, do not coincide with those of India. And then there were divisions over there, which intersect with their engagement with the foreign powers. So they have got to balance their approach to India and to China. Myanmar geographically cannot afford to ignore China, however close it may be to India. So the third was the insurance. Is tied to the fifth factor, the rise of the domestic politics, which is mostly Indian. It's an Indian regional policy. But then this thing, the domestic politics in the neighboring countries, has always been ignored by the Indian leadership, which they should not have. As a matter of fact, how can India continue to champion Tamil minority in rights in Sri Lanka without incurring any cost with the majority Senalis? And if they support Tamils, they lose the support of Senalis who are controlling Sri Lanka. And if they don't oppose or support Tamils, then they lose the Tamilian votes in Tamil Nadu. So either they support their regional party or they support a foreign. This is an example. Now imagine it. Manmohan Singh did not attend the Colombo Commonwealth Conference, not for any other reason but because the Tamil Nadu Congress leaders opposed the visit, citing the impending elections. They said if you go to Sri Lanka, then the Tamilians would not vote for us because they think that Tamils are being persecuted in Sri Lanka. So it did not go. Mamata Banerjee pulled the plug at the last moment. Manmohan was going to meet Sheikh Hasina to sign the agreement on Tista waters. Mamata objected and it didn't go. But then this was done by Modi. So this, creates a problem. There's no easy answer. The source of problem lies in deeply interconnected nature of the South Asian societies. This is culturally one, subculturally divided, and then multiple sovereigns. Each country is a sovereign country. And then, don't forget your domestic politics always has impact on the regional policies. When Congress was the monolith, people thought India is a great country because it's one party. And then it was fractured, the opposition came into power. They said, well, India is as good or as bad as we are, so why bother about it? And now with the Modi coming in, there's again thinking, well, this is a strong country. Let's be on the right side of strong. It's a human nature to be on the right side of the strength. So the fact is that there is no happy end state in the India's relation with our neighbors. But then it's carefully managing the inevitable difficulties that rise. Timely responses to the emerger problems prevent small issues from becoming great. That's a big achievement. While the biggest problem is, as I said, the lack of coordination. So India has to align its regional economic policy with geographical advantages, which India is not doing. But to say it's losing this clout is not proper. It has always been a seesaw game, but now the clout is increasing. It's coming to the heyday, what it had under Nehru, then Indira, then it fell into an abyss, and now it's coming up again. Let's hope that India can sustain it and do it better in case it can have better coordination and better appraisal of the relationship. Thank you.